Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Mm.
This is where we take the latest reports, the newest data, those insightful articles you've shared with us, and we dive right in.
Exactly. We sort of dissect the information, tried to give you that shortcut to being well-informed without, all the overload.
We're your guides through all that material, helping you understand what's really important.
Connecting the dots and
Yeah.
maybe highlighting some surprising uh, nuggets of knowledge buried in there.
And today, wow, we're embarking on a deep dive into a story of some pretty significant economic momentum. It's coming out of Morocco.
Yeah, the focus is squarely on their tourism sector.
And the performance. It's been remarkable, really, in the first few months of 2025. We've got figures right up to the end of April.
Mm-hmm. And our sources for this, they're coming right from the heart of Moroccan tourism strategy. We're talking reports, articles from key bodies like the Ministry of Tourism, the Regional Tourism Council for Marrakesh Safi.
And the National Moroccan Tourist Office, the ONMT.
Yeah. Right. So these aren't just numbers dropped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They reflect the strategic thinking from the people actually driving this growth.
So our mission here,
Mm.
pretty clear. We want to unpack the sheer volume of these numbers.
Understand the forces behind it, the strategy.
And look ahead a bit, right? What's the future vision that these sources are laying out for Moroccan tourism?
Yeah, what does it mean for Morocco's place on the global tourism map? And crucially, what challenges are they talking about internally, as they navigate this rapid expansion?
Because you often think of tourism in seasons, peaks, and troughs.
Exactly. But one of the really interesting things right from the start in these sources is this narrative of growth that seems to, well, almost defy those traditional cycles. Strong performance, even when you might not expect it.
Okay, let's get into it then. This incredible performance. Let's start high level. The national figures from the Ministry of Tourism. What's the overall picture for early 2025?
Absolutely. So, kicking off with the earliest figures mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
the first big milestone reported was hitting 4 million tourists. That's by the end of March 2025.
4 million, just in the first 3 months. That sounds substantial, very substantial for that early in the year.
Oh, it is. And the key thing a sources really hammer home is the growth this represents, that 4 million figure. It's highlighted as a remarkable increase of 22% compared to the same time in 2024.
Wow, 22%.
Yeah. Now, for any established destination, getting a 22% year-on-year jump in Q1, that's not just good. It's exceptionally dynamic, really signals strong demand.
And suggests whatever strategies they have in place are really working.
Definitely. It sets a very, very high bar for the rest of the year.
A 22% increase isn't just a minor bump. It's a significant shift. And the sources break down these 4 million arrivals too, don't they? Who are these visitors?
They do, yeah. The ministry's figures split them into two main groups. 2.1 million were classified as international tourists, so people living outside Morocco visiting. And the other 1.9 million were from the Moroccan diaspora. Moroccans residing abroad, coming home for a visit.
That balance is pretty insightful, actually. Almost 50-50.
It really is.
It shows the growth isn't just about attracting new foreign tourists, important as that is, but that connection with the Moroccan community overseas plays a huge, almost equal role.
Yeah, it speaks to Morocco's appeal on multiple levels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As a travel destination and as, a place of origin and connection for its diaspora.
That diaspora segment probably adds a layer of resilience too, I imagine. Maybe less affected by global travel fads.
Precisely. They often contribute consistently, while the growth in the purely international number reflects that broader global appeal and, market reach.
Now, the sources also flag March 2025 specifically. What was special about March?
Right. March saw nearly 1.4 million visitors alone.
Okay.
But what makes it so interesting, as the sources point out, is that March 2025 overlapped directly with Ramadan.
Ah, okay.
And despite that, the month still clocked a 17% growth compared to March 2024.
17% growth during Ramadan. That really does lean into that idea you mentioned earlier about transcending seasons, because Ramadan can sometimes, affect travel plans or local activities. So achieving strong growth then, what does that suggest?
Well, the national figures don't dive super deep into who exactly was arriving in March or why, but the fact that overall arrivals grew significantly year on year during that time.
Yeah.
It strongly supports that strategic goal you hear mentioned a lot in these sources, positioning Morocco as What do they call it?
A destination for season.
Exactly, a destination for seasons. It suggests maybe they're broadening your source markets, attracting people less influenced by the timing of holidays.
Or maybe they've just gotten really good at ensuring there are vibrant things happening year-round, even during Ramadan.
Could be both.
Yeah.
But it's definitely key evidence that their appeal is becoming more constant, less tied to the old seasonal patterns.
Okay, so 4 million by end of March, strong performance even with Ramadan. What happened when April's numbers came in? Did the momentum hold?
It really did. Continued strongly into April. By the end of the first 4 months, so up to the end of April 2025, the kingdom had welcomed a total of 5.7 million tourists.
5.7 million. In just 4 months, that's a big jump from the March figure. How does that stack up year on year for that January to April period?
That cumulative figure, the 5.7 million for Jan-April 2025, represents a 23% progression compared to the same 4 months in 2024.
23%, so slightly higher even than the Q1 growth rate of 22%?
Exactly. The pace seems to be holding steady, maybe even accelerating slightly as the year goes on.
And the sources put that in concrete terms too, didn't they?
They did. They emphasized that the 5.7 million arrivals in Jan-April 2025 means Morocco welcomed an additional 1 million tourists compared to the first 4 months of 2024.
An extra million people.
In just 4 months.
Wow. Think about fitting an extra million people into the infrastructure, the services.
Yeah, the sheer volume. That's a major point highlighted in the reports. It really speaks to the scale of this current boom.
Astonishing, really. And what about April 2025 just by itself?
April alone saw 1.7 million arrivals.
Which is higher than March's 1.4 million.
Right, and it translated into a 27% increase compared to April 2024.
27% just for April. Okay, so that really underlines that this isn't just some blip. The strong growth is continuing, even picking up steam.
It really reinforces that attractiveness that transcends traditional seasons idea we talked about. The April growth rate being higher than the Q1 average is solid proof.
And the official line is, this isn't just luck.
Not at all. The sources are clear in the attribution. Minister Fatim Zahra Emmer is quoted, attributing these exceptional results directly to the effectiveness of the government's tourism roadmap.
Okay.
She highlights it was launched under the king's leadership, and it's specifically focused on, capitalizing on Morocco's unique assets, the culture, history, landscape, that hospitality.
All the things Morocco is known for.
Exactly. And building the conditions, the infrastructure, the framework for perennial sustainable growth, not just peaks and valleys.
So the message is, this is deliberate. It's the result of a high-level strategic plan being implemented successfully.
That's precisely the narrative in the reports and official statements. The strategy is the engine, aiming for a tourism sector that thrives consistently, year-round, leveraging Morocco's inherent appeal.
Okay, let's just quickly synthesize that national picture then. Exceptional growth, first 4 months of 2025. An extra million tourists compared to last year. Strong performance-defying seasonality like during Ramadan. And it's all officially attributed to a focused strategic roadmap.
Yeah, it paints a picture of Morocco as a really dynamic, rapidly expanding player in global tourism right now. A destination for seasons seeming to become reality.
It's a very positive momentum story at the national level.
Definitely.
All right, so with that impressive national overview set, let's zoom in. Let's look at a specific region, one that's, well, it's basically synonymous with Moroccan tourism for many people. Marrakesh Safi.
Ah, yes, the powerhouse.
How does the performance of this key region fit into that bigger national picture? Does it mirror the national trend?
Well, we have specific data for Marrakesh Safi, confirmed and provided by the Regional Tourism Council, the CRT Marrakesh Safi. So we can get quite granular here.
Okay, and what do those regional figures show for the first 4 months of 2025, end of April?
For that Jan-April 2025 period, the Marrakesh Safi region recorded 1,059,305 tourist arrivals.
Okay, over 1 million arrivals just in that region.
Right, and this represents a 6% growth compared to the same period in 2024.
6% growth in arrivals.
And in terms of overnight stays, the region saw 3,304,452. That's an 8% growth.
Okay, so 6% growth in arrivals, 8% in overnight stays. They're solid, positive numbers. Shows continued expansion in a major hub.
Definitely growing.
But they are notably lower than that overall national growth rate of 23% we just talked about.
That's a really crucial observation, yeah. It suggests that while Marrakesh Safi is still growing healthily and it's huge in absolute numbers,
right, it's the bait.
Other regions across Morocco must be experiencing even faster percentage growth to pull that national average up so high.
So Marrakesh is vital, but maybe other destinations are catching up or expanding faster proportionally.
That seems likely, but There's another key metric for the region the sources highlight: passenger traffic at Marrakesh Menara Airport.
Ah, the airport. What was the figure there?
That saw a remarkable 22% progression during the same Jan-April 2025 period.
22%. Now that number is much closer to the national tourism growth average of 23%.
It is.
Okay, but hang on. This is where it gets interesting, maybe a bit complex. If airport traffic is up a massive 22%, but recorded tourist arrivals for the region are only up 6%, what's going on there? What could that difference suggest?
Yeah, this is a nuance the sources sort of touch on implicitly. They don't spell out one single reason. But based on how tourism metrics usually work, it could point to a few things.
Like what?
Well, one possibility. Maybe that 22% airport traffic includes more domestic travelers, people flying within Morocco who aren't counted in the regional tourist arrival stats in the same way.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or it could be international tourists using Marrakesh as their main entry or exit point. But then they travel onwards pretty quickly to other parts of Morocco. So they land there, maybe leave from there, but spend fewer nights within the Marrakesh-Safi region itself.
Right, using it as a gateway?
Could be. It might also just be different ways of measuring things. Airport counts are total passenger movements, right? Regional tourist arrivals might be based more on hotel check-ins or specific declarations. It's complicated.
But the key thing is the airport is handling that huge 22% increase in traffic.
Exactly. And the sources do later praise the airport services for managing this volume efficiently. So operationally, that's a major success, regardless of the exact breakdown of who those passengers are or where they ultimately stayed overnight.
It shows that regional data can have layers, complexities compared to the big national numbers.
Definitely. It's not always a simple mirror image.
And speaking of Marrakesh Safi specifically, did the Regional Tourism Council also comment on the Ramadan impact like the national report did?
Yes, they did. And it was quite emphatic. The CRT Marrakesh Safi explicitly stated that for the first time, the month of Ramadan did not impact tourism activity for their region.
For the first time. That's a strong statement. It really underlines how significant that shift feels on the ground in a major hub like Marrakesh.
It really does.
Any hints in the sources as to why Marrakesh Safi might have achieved this no-impact status this year specifically?
Again, no detailed causal analysis in these specific sources for the regional aspect. But if you link it back to the national strategy, the overall narrative, it likely points to success in diversifying the region's appeal.
So attracting different types of visitors?
Could be. Maybe visitors from new source markets, something we'll touch on later, or different demographics whose travel isn't tied to Ramadan timing.
Or promoting specific types of tourism, maybe business travel, events, things that continue regardless.
Potentially. Or just really successful promotion of cultural experiences that are available and appealing during that period too. For a major international city like Marrakesh, getting to that no-impact status for Ramadan, that's a big step towards being genuinely year-round.
And this regional performance, the numbers, the Ramadan point, this was all discussed at a high-level meeting recently, wasn't it?
It was. The sources mentioned this performance was highlighted during a recent meeting of the CRT Marrakesh Safi Bureau, and the significance is underscored by who attended.
Right, you had top officials there.
Yeah, Farid Chourak, the wali of the region, who's basically the regional governor, and Akraf Feda, the Director General of the ONMT, the National Tourism Office. Their presence shows the level of attention, the strategic importance being placed on the region's results, and its future planning.
Okay, so we've seen the strong national picture zoomed into Marrakesh Safi with its solid growth and interesting nuances. Now let's pivot to the future, based on that CRT meeting discussion. What are the key challenges that the leaders in Marrakesh Safi see ahead? What needs addressing to keep this growth going and manage it well?
Haid bin Bentar, who's the president of the CRT Marrakesh Safi, he outlined three main challenges the region is grappling with as it looks forward.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first challenge is competitiveness.
Competitiveness. How are they defining that?
The source says maintaining and boosting competitiveness requires structuring projects specifically designed to support growth and indeed improve hotel occupancy rates.
Right. So it's not just about being attractive. It's about having the actual infrastructure, the projects to handle more people efficiently, and making sure that influx translates into real economic benefit, like filling those hotel beds consistently. Can't just build hotels, you need people in them.
Exactly. In a fast-moving global market, and with their own numbers jumping up, they know they need continuous investment in the hard stuff infrastructure, services to stay ahead and ensure the growth actually benefits the local economy through metrics like occupancy.
Makes sense. What was the second challenge?
The second one is about inclusive management of tourist flows and equitable distribution.
Okay, that sounds important, especially for a place like Marrakesh with its famous concentrated Medina.
It's critical. The sources explain this means actively encouraging visitors to discover other itineraries, not just hitting the absolute hotspots in the Medina.
Like Gemma El Fana or the main souks.
Right, but also getting them to explore other parts of the Medina and crucially extending out into the different provinces of the wider region.
Yeah, that feels like a direct response to the potential downsides of rapid growth, doesn't it? Over-tourism in specific spots. So, inclusive management means easing the pressure on those hotspots. And equitable distribution means spreading the economic benefits beyond the city center out to the surrounding areas, the communities, and businesses there.
Spot on. It enhances the visitor experience too, by offering more diverse options, potentially more authentic encounters. It's really about managing success responsibly.
Avoid killing the goose that lays the golden egg, in a way.
Pretty much. How do you handle the positive pressure of more visitors without damaging the destination's character, while sharing the benefits more widely? It's a core challenge.
And the third challenge they identified.
A third one is sustainability.
Sustainability. A big topic everywhere now. What aspects are they focusing on?
The sources explicitly link it to two key areas.
Huh.
Better water resource management.
Which is absolutely critical in that part of the world.
Hugely critical. Especially with arid periods and the increased demand from residents and tourists, sustainable water practices are non-negotiable for the long term.
And the second aspect of sustainability.
The promotion and valorization of intangible heritage for future generations.
Intangible heritage. So the living culture. Traditions, crafts, music, storytelling.
Exactly. The skills, the knowledge, the cultural practices that give the place its unique soul, its authentic feel.
And the risk is that mass tourism could dilute or commodify that, losing the very thing people come for.
Precisely. So promoting and valuing it, ensuring it's passed on, that's seen as crucial for long-term sustainable appeal. It shows they recognize that growth has to protect the environmental and cultural foundations it rests on.
Okay, so three big challenges: competitiveness, inclusive flow management and distribution, and sustainability focusing on water and heritage. Did the meeting talk about specific actions or projects underway to tackle these?
Yes, definitely. The Wali of the region, Farid Chorak, he jumped on these points, highlighting the importance of ongoing major construction sites and projects across the region. He gave several concrete examples.
Oh, good. What specific projects did he list?
Unitour sources mentioned the ongoing extension of the airport Marrakesh-Menara.
Okay, handles more passengers, addresses competitiveness.
Right. Also, the realization of the exhibition in Congress Palace.
Ah, boosting business tourism, meetings, events.
Yeah.
Again, competitiveness, occupancy rates.
Exactly. Then, modernization of the road network and urban transport.
Crucial for moving people around, accessing wider areas. So that links to managing flows and distribution.
Definitely. Makes it easier to get beyond the center. Also mentioned was the upgrading of the Medina of Marrakesh.
Okay, so improving the experience within the historic core, managing density, maybe preserving heritage aspects too.
Is likely. Ties into both flow management and sustainability of heritage. And finally, he explicitly mentioned projects focused on sustainable management of water resources.
Directly addressing that critical sustainability challenge.
Yes. So you can really see the direct links, can't you? The airport extension, the road and transport modernization, they boost competitiveness by improving access and efficiency. They also enable inclusive flow management by helping move people around. The Congress Palace hits competitiveness and occupancy. The Medina upgrade addresses flow management within the core and heritage sustainability. And the water projects hit sustainability head-on.
So these aren't just random building projects. They're presented as strategic investments targeted squarely at those challenges they identified, building capacity, improving experience, mitigating negative impacts.
That's exactly how they're framed, as the necessary foundations for the future they're aiming for.
And speaking of future ambition, the Wali, Mr. Chorak, said something pretty bold about that, didn't he?
He did. He talked about the region's potential. Get this. To double its performance.
Double. Based on the already impressive growth. That's
Oh.
incredibly ambitious for Marrakesh stuff.
It is. And he specifically linked to this goal, potentially doubling performance, to working together, synergy collaboration, and to the context of Morocco hosting major upcoming international events.
Ah, okay. The big events on the horizon. That provides the context and maybe the impetus for such a goal. Let's talk about that broader strategic support and those future drivers.
Right. So the sources detail the commitment from the national level. from the ONMT, the National Tourism Office. Its Director General, Akraf Feda, who was at the meeting, he reaffirmed their dedication to keep supporting the dynamic we're seeing in Marrakesh Safi.
And how does the ONMT actually provide that support? What kind of actions?
The support highlighted includes things like targeted promotional actions, aiming campaigns at specific markets or types of visitors, and, significantly, air travel support actions.
Air travel again. Clearly fundamental, especially with that 22% airport traffic jump we saw.
Absolutely critical. And Mr. Feda, the ONMT boss, he reinforced that description you sometimes hear, calling Marrakesh the true locomotive of national tourism.
The engine driving the train.
Pretty much. It underlines its foundational importance and justifies that focused national support and investment in its growth and infrastructure.
And on air travel development specifically, what was the ONMT's focus? Just more flights generally.
Mr. Feda emphasized their ongoing work to develop air links, but with a particular strategic focus: establishing and strengthening long-haul routes coming from new essential markets.
Okay, long-haul routes from new markets. Why is that specific combination, long-haul and new, so strategically important for them right now?
Well, think about it. Focusing on long-haul for new markets does a couple of key things. First, diversification.
Right, not putting all your eggs in one basket, geographically speaking.
Exactly. Relying too heavily on traditional nearby markets makes you vulnerable if something happens in those countries, economic downturn, whatever. Opening new markets, especially long-haul ones like maybe from Asia or the Americas, spreads that risk, broadens the potential visitor pool.
And does it potentially bring in different kinds of tourists, too?
That's the second point. New markets, particularly long-haul, often bring different traveler profiles. Maybe tourists who stay longer, potentially spend more, or have different travel patterns that align better with that destination four seasons goal. It's about widening the reach and building resilience.
So it's a deliberate strategy, not just more numbers, but more numbers from a wider, maybe more beneficial base.
That seems to be the goal.
And we touched on the airport operations earlier, handling that 22% traffic increase. Was there positive feedback mentioned in the sources about how that's being managed?
Yes, there was. The sources noted that during the meeting, participants specifically commended the efforts of ONDA, that's the National Airports Authority, and the other services working at Marrakesh Manara,
What were they praised
for effectively managing that big jump in passenger flows, and also for improving the welcome process, the passenger experience when they arrive and leave.
That's actually a really crucial detail, isn't it?
It is.
Because you can have the best strategy, the best promotion, but if arriving at the airport is chaos, it ruins the first impression. So getting positive feedback on efficiency, especially with a 22% traffic surge, suggests the operational side is actually keeping pace.
It suggests the system's coping, handling the volume effectively, which is vital. The meeting also stressed the importance of stronger consultation and coordination among all the different players in the tourism industry.
Consultation and coordination,
Right.
basically making sure everyone's working together smoothly.
Yeah, ensuring the whole value chain is aligned.
Why is that collaboration so critical, especially when you're aiming for massive growth and have these big future goals?
Well, if you want to achieve something ambitious, like potentially doubling performance and manage tricky challenges like spreading visitors out fairly and ensuring sustainability, you need seamless cooperation across the board.
You mean between hotels, transport, guides, attractions?
Exactly. Hotels, restaurants, transport companies, tour operators, guides, local artisans, cultural sites, local government, national agencies, the whole ecosystem. If they aren't coordinated, say if transport isn't aligned with hotel capacity or if site management clashes with tour schedules, it creates bottlenecks.
Inefficiencies, maybe a poor visitor experience.
Right. A fragmented, inconsistent experience.
Yeah.
That synergy the Wally mentioned is key. It requires everyone pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely. The collective effort. Okay, and finally, let's circle back to those major upcoming events, the ones linked to that goal of doubling performance.
Right. The sources frame these huge international events as definite catalysts for future growth. They explicitly mentioned the Cannes, the Africa Cup of Nations.
The big football tournament.
Yeah. And even more significantly, the 2030 FIFA World Cup, which Morocco is co-hosting.
Okay, the World Cup. That's massive. How do events like that act as catalysts for tourism and development? What do they actually do?
They work on multiple levels. First, they force infrastructure development, or at least accelerate it significantly.
Because you have to be ready by a certain date.
Exactly. Those projects, the Wally-listed airport expansion, transport upgrades, maybe new stadiums or hotels, they often get tied directly to meeting the hosting requirements. It provides a hard deadline and a powerful incentive to get things built.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, the global promotional opportunity is just unparalleled. Millions, maybe billions, of eyes around the world focused on Morocco during these events. Huge visibility boost.
Free marketing on a massive scale.
Pretty much. And third, they attract enormous numbers of visitors in very concentrated periods. This tests the capacity, the efficiency of the whole tourism sector, hotels, transport, security, everything. And that pressure itself drives further investment and improvements in operational standards.
So these events provide a clear target, a powerful motivation. They force the pace of development, raise standards, and put Morocco in the global spotlight, all feeding into that ambitious growth goal.
That's the narrative strongly supported by the sources. The current growth isn't just seen as success in itself, but as building momentum and preparing to leverage these huge future milestones.
Okay, wow. Let's try and pull all these threads together then. Synthesize this deep dive.
Let's do it.
We started with the exceptional national tourism growth in Morocco first 4 months of 2025. That striking plus 1 million tourists figure, the strong performance even during Ramadan suggesting that Destination 4 Seasons goal is taking shape.
Then we zoomed into Marrakesh Safi. Solid growth there too, though maybe not as fast percentage-wise as the national average. But with fascinating dynamics like that huge airport traffic surge versus regional arrivals and their own success in overcoming the Ramadan dip for the first time.
Then we looked at the challenges the regional leaders are focused on: competitiveness, needing infrastructure, inclusive flow management, spreading people and benefits out, and sustainability, especially water and heritage.
And critically, we saw how specific major projects, airport roads, Congress Palace, Medina upgrades, water management, are directly tackling those challenges. These aren't just random works, they're strategic investments.
Right. And finally, we saw the national support from the ONMT, the focus on diversifying with long-haul routes from new markets, and how this all connects to an incredibly ambitious future vision, potentially doubling performance, catalyzed by hosting huge events like the CN and the 2030 World Cup.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive picture. What it reveals, I think, is a tourism sector that's not just bouncing back or growing organically. It's being actively managed, strategically invested in, with a clear focus on building capacity and enhancing appeal for the long haul.
These numbers we've discussed, they aren't just abstract statistics, are they?
Not at all. They're indicators of deliberate planning, significant investment, and ongoing efforts to grapple with the complexities that inevitably come with such rapid expansion.
So for you, listening to this, understanding these different layers, the national plan, the regional execution, the challenges they openly admit, the projects on the ground, the massive future drivers, it gives you a much deeper insight, doesn't it? Into Morocco's current economic priorities, its positioning globally.
Yeah, it shows a country really betting big on tourism and trying to put the pieces in place to handle much, much larger volumes down the line. It's a story of ambition, definitely, but also, crucially, pursued with a recognition of the challenges that must be addressed for it all to work sustainably.
It truly is. And as we wrap up this deep dive on Morocco's tourism surge in early 2025, there is one thought stemming directly from what we've heard in the sources that kind of lingers, doesn't it?
Go on. What's the thought?
Well, we heard about this incredible ambition potentially doubling performance in a key region like Marrakesh Safi, fueled by synergy, collaboration, and the massive catalyst of events like the World Cup.
Right, that huge goal.
Yet, in the same breath, the very same leaders emphasize these fundamental, critical challenges, ensuring tourist flows are managed inclusively so the benefits are shared widely, and crucially, securing sustainable management of vital resources, especially water.
Yeah, the scale of the ambition versus the absolute necessity of managing the impact responsibly. The tension there.
Exactly. So the question these sources kind of leave hanging for us, for you listening, is this: can that remarkable rapid growth, especially when accelerated by the immense scale and demands of hosting something like the World Cup, truly be managed in a way that is both fundamentally sustainable, particularly with resources like water, and genuinely inclusive? Or will the sheer pressure to hit those ambitious performance targets inevitably test the limits of the systems, the projects, the resources they're putting in place right now?
That is the core tension, isn't it? Ambition versus sustainability, scale versus inclusivity. That's the dynamic to watch as this whole story unfolds in Morocco over the coming years.
It certainly is a fascinating situation. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really interesting mix of strategy, big numbers, and very real-world challenges.
We really appreciate you tuning in. Until next time, keep digging into the world around you.